Welcome to episode 5, everyone. We're so glad that you're with us. Now, you're going to love what we have coming up. We have a fascinating interview, actually Patrick does, with Ari Bar-David, and he also talks with Greg Koukl. And this is the one I want to know about, the Jesus Boat. But before we get to that, tell us about this interview with Ari Bar-David.
Ari Bar-David, I think, won the boat for the whole crew that was in Israel for the most inspirational interview that we did. The man has an incredible story, fought in 5 wars. He's a Messianic Jew, a Jew that has accepted Christ as the Messiah that was prophesied. He did something that's kind of unusual in Israel. He created a Christian kibbutz, and from that grew this amazing community. But at the center of Ari Bar-David's interview is his faith. And the experience, the direct experience they had with that faith that translated to the saving of many men that he was responsible for in a war. So when he tells the story, it's gripping. And the way that he tells it brings it to life, and it's something that is transformative. So I'll never forget, as we were there and the crew was around us and they were listening to the story, everybody was just on the edge of their seat and engrossed. So you're going to really, really enjoy Ari Bar-David. In addition to that, we have part 1 of 3 parts of an interview with Greg Koukl. Greg Koukl is a Christian apologist. He has a radio show. He started the organization called Stand to Reason. And let me tell you, there's a sharp and powerful intellect there, which is why we have 3 parts, because there's so much ground that we covered. And he does it in such a compelling way that I believe that he's in a category of his own. So you're really going to enjoy Greg Koukl. And then lastly, we have this thing that we talked about called the Jesus Boat. And it is an endearing story. It's a sweetheart story about these 2 brothers had their prayers answered with this miraculous discovery of a boat that was found on the Sea of Galilee that is from the 1st century, the time of Jesus. And I don't want to give too much of the story away, but when you listen to these 2 brothers who just have such love and admiration for each other talk about what it meant to discover this and how it was an answer to their prayers, it's something that's really, really uplifting. So this is an amazing episode, and I look forward to going with you on this journey. Ari, we're surrounded by a beautiful place here, and I know that you have quite a story, so I'm looking forward to this conversation. Thank you for taking your time.
Yeah, we are really in one of the most not only beautiful but meaningful place in the land of Israel.
So your story goes back to your father, who came from Bulgaria. Where she came here, brought his family. But can you tell his story about his journey from Bulgaria to here?
Yeah, actually, my father was born to a very rich family in Bulgaria, really powerful family. He was one of 6 children. He was the elder of them. And from very, very little, really childhood, he was eager to know God. Yes. It's very interesting, but Bulgaria's Jewish people, usually they are very secular.
Yes.
You know, they consider themselves good people. We don't need God, you know. But in my father, it was really burning. Who is God? How to reach him? And he felt holiness of God. When he was in the synagogue and people were talking about money or business, he really pushed their trousers when they were like 3, 4 years old, telling them, stop. Holy place, stop. So in his youth, he was reading and reading. My father could talk 11 languages.
Wow.
And he would never read a book not in the original language, never. So it was really, plowing, over books and books to find God. He never found it. He was studying in Switzerland, in university, economy, because of the business of the family, but philosophy and astronomy to find God. And after he finished his thema, in philosophy, Hegel, Nietzsche, and Plato, he felt that he knew a lot, but it didn't mean to him anything. And what happened when he finished his studies, he was there in the university, and one morning he was sitting in his room, doesn't have any satisfaction, and he heard a band of musicians walking down under this in Lucerne, near the lake.
Uh-huh.
He went down to the road and he saw a group of fanfare players,
Uh-huh.
trombone, cornets, trumpets. He looked on them and they were walking left, right, left. He looked, something in their apparel attracted him.
Uh-huh.
And when they just passed by him, one of the players, as he was playing, he was taking a little booklet from his shirt and put it in my father's pocket and continued. Now, my father was very surprised. What can be inside, right? So he opened it as he went back to his room in the university, and immediately he saw written sentence that he never heard it. By the way, it was in English before. Verily, verily, I say unto you. Amen, amen, I say. What? What is this kind of combination of words? So it really shocked him, because the Hebrew way, if it was a Hebrew source, it will be Rabbi
Yeah.
Eliezer. In the name of Rabbi, another name,
Right.
said.
Right.
But here, truly, truly, I. And this is a man that read lot. He never found such combination. He decided, I want to see who is this one.
Uh-huh.
Who is this one that talks with such authority?
Yeah.
That's what shocked him. And this little booklet was the Gospel of Matthew, and actually opened in the Sermon on the Mountain.
Wow.
And this is what saved him. He could not stop it.
Yeah.
He read it again and again, and he felt for the first time in his young life that this is the answer of what he was looking for. It was a big story what happened there, because his family, for them to hear that one of their sons turned to believe in Yeshua, it was something that they couldn't deal
Didn't
with.
accept, yeah.
No, it was a big story, of course. They took him out of the family. Actually, what he did, he left Switzerland straight to Israel. It
Wow.
was 1928.
Wow.
He was 23 and a half years old. And just with a little luggage, landed in Jaffa, put it in, the luggage in the store, and looked around in the country, right? What he's going to do. But that's what he felt, that he has to come to the land of Israel. That this is the promised land, that God wants him here. I mean, it was very, very quick, all these decisions. And that's how he arrived here.
And this is interesting because he's Jewish, yet he becomes what's now they refer to as a Messianic Jew, a Jew that accepts Jesus as the prophesied Savior.
Yeah.
And he comes to Israel in the 1920s. So this is before 1947, 48, when there was a country that was actually formed. So that was a very daring thing to do. Now, did you tell me also he was the first Messianic Jew in Israel?
That started a family.
That started a family
Right,
here.
in Israel. You see, because now people say Messianic Jews, everyone understands.
Just to clarify something about this, a Messianic Jew does not consider themselves converted to Christianity.
No, of course not.
Yeah, I know, but a lot of people think that they converted to Christianity. They don't convert to Christianity. They still have their Jewish Old Testament practices, but they accept the Gospels and they accept Christ.
You're right. I said it now in Israel. Everyone knows what is.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, for my father to start so many years ago, this identity that we are Jewish people, because Yeshua was a Jewish people,
Yes.
and the disciples were Jewish people, and all the story is here in this land, is in the Sea of Galilee,
Yes.
and they were eating the same food that we are eating and talk the same language that we are talking,
Yes.
mixing with Aramaic,
Yeah.
not Greek at all.
Right.
This is so Jewish, so Israeli, so connected to this land. And for him, it was really pioneering
Yes.
to go this way. Because in those days when people have heard about him, and then we were a big family, 7 children, they wrote to him all kind of letters. For instance, I'm the third one, and I want volunteered to be a paratrooper, you know.
Yes.
And you know how many letters my father got? How you let your son go to be a paratrooper? You have to be pacifist. You should not serve in the Israeli army.
Right.
You have to teach your children that, you know, things like this. And because we had to really pave a way that never nobody walked in this way.
Yes.
Because again, like you said, very right, we're not converted to, because we are Jewish people that believe in Yeshua like it was 2,000 years ago.
Right.
So why to be converted? Praise the Lord, for many years we were only 30 people. Many years. I remember when we were more than 100. I remember it like it happened yesterday. Actually, I remember when we were more than 50, because it was first camp that we did, and we had a big bus, and we had a little Volkswagen, this little one, how you call it, you know,
Bug. Yeah.
I remember that we were proud that we need a bug, because we are more than 50.
Yeah.
And my father always told us, you will see when we will be not only 100, but 300 and 700. He was not living enough to see that we are more than 10,000, more than 15,000, and maybe 20,000 now.
Yes.
But I think now it is so clear that the way that really he paved is so clear in this country. I mean, when I look on the hundreds of believers that are serving in the army, in every unit, from pilots in the Air Force, and they are Israelis, you see.
Yes.
What a way we had to pass.
Yes.
What a way. And look, it was very short after the Holocaust.
Yeah.
We were living in the middle of Jerusalem. Almost all our neighbors were Holocaust survivors.
Wow.
And for them, we were worse than the Nazis, because the Nazis were German Lutherans.
Right.
And for them, we were worse than betrayers.
Wow.
All my childhood, I've heard that you are worse than the Nazis. They try to kill us physically, you are killing us spiritually, with all your ideas and so on, you know. But praise the Lord, our home was our church, if you want to call it this way. And as we grew more, we were 7 children, we had 2 adopted children, we had grandmother, grandfather, great-grandmother, aunt of grandmother, I mean, big family. Every night, sometimes we really passed pogroms. Every night, all the family, we were on the knees in Jerusalem, cold floor, really, on the knees. And my father shared with us from the gospel, a lot from Matthew, a lot from the Sermon on the Mountain, and everyone praying in his time. And this was the feeling, you see, that's what filled us to grow normal and not rebel. You see, we are now more than 100 in my family, with all the children, with grandchildren. We are more than 100. And unbelievable, but no one of the big family, no one left faith.
They all stayed in the faith.
Yeah.
The whole family.
All the family. It's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable.
Yeah, but it's again, it goes back, you know, to the daily plowing.
Yeah.
That's looking far away forward, plowing and walking. Not about what happens, because it can break you.
Yeah. Now, because you have here now what started as the first, messianic kibbutz, right? Where you got together as a commune of Jews who accepted the Messiah.
Yeah.
And that started with just a few, 8 families, I think. How many families?
Yeah, actually the story started with a group of Finnish people.
Finnish people, yeah.
Very, very special story. You know, in Second World War, it happened that, I don't tell you now the story, it's very well known, there were movies about it, but what happened that after Germany, 1938, they commanded to all the Jews to leave Germany, and some of them spread to the west, Denmark, Holland, Netherlands, some of them to Sweden, some of them to Finland. What happened 1st September when the Second World War started, you know that 7 months later, Hitler conquered all West Europe.
Yeah.
And actually what happened, he conquered all those places that the Jews that were evacuated from Germany, now they are.
Right.
So there were Jews in Finland, around 1,800. And Hitler demanded them that they will be brought back because they are German refugees. The Prime Minister of Finland, Mannerheim, said, sorry, they are not German refugees. They are now Finnish citizens.
Yes.
You're not going to get anyone back. This was very, very tension time because Finland was in a big war with Russia.
Uh-huh.
It's called the Winter War. And the foreign minister of Finland, you know, he was very afraid because German threatened Finland to start a war against her. And he knew that it will not be able for Finland to. So he decided to make a treaty, a kind of agreement with the Germans. They will send a ship. It will look like British. They will tell all the Finnish Jewish to arrive to Helsinki port, and they will take them to England. This was what he planned. And the ship arrived, and you know, British people in the ship. And the moment they started talking, I mean, the German accent was too strong. So there was a fight on the ship, really fight. Jewish people ran away, jumped, and so on. And the ship left with only 8 people.
Wow.
These 8 people, that their names are here, these are the source of the name of this village, which is called the Memory of the 8. Now, for the Finnish people, it was something they couldn't understand. How it happened that Finland lost 8 Jewish people. And what happened actually, Finnish groups started to coming and thinking and really how we can do something to memorize these 8. And it happened with a group of volunteers that came to our neighbor kibbutz, and they really thought about starting kibbutz. The story continued on and on. It arrived to Golda Meir, our prime minister. And she at the end said, yes, I give you permission. So this was the only kibbutz that was done not by Israelis, but Finnish.
Wow.
What happened that 2 years after they were here, me and my 2 brothers arrived here.
Ha.
You see, we didn't know anything about them. We didn't know about the history of what happened here. And we were running a youth camp of Jewish believers, right? Youth camp. And the end of these 10 days, the Finnish people, there were also 5 women, 1 couple, and 2 children. They looked on us and they said, it was a dream for us to see you, young Israelis, studying Bible, teaching Bible, these youth people. Please think about it. Think and pray about coming and living here and take this place on you, because we cannot continue.
Wow.
And then we found it was almost bankrupting. So look how God turned the things that I was then playing in Jerusalem Symphonic Orchestra. I was all kind of jobs there. And in one of the nights, I really got very clear. Aryeh, you have to leave music. You have to leave the orchestra. You have to leave all what you are doing and start building this place. It was nothing. It was a bare mountain. Nothing. So we came, my younger brother, and then we are 2 brothers married to 2 sisters, and then a 4th one came, and we started building this. Slowly, slowly, we decided we don't take any loans. We just, from what we have, what we earn, this is the way that we build this place.
And now these many years later, you have how many families?
56 believers' families.
Wow.
Yeah.
And now I walked through this area you called the Biblical Gardens.
Yeah.
What do they represent?
You know, from the beginning, I speak about 40 years ago, we felt that this is a place that we want to teach Bible. Also Israelis, also non-Israelis, I mean Christians. And we decided to keep the most beautiful place, to keep it for Biblical Garden. What is the meaning of Biblical Garden? We have here like 16 stations. Each one of these stations, we can spend 1 hour and 2 hours even, like threshing floor, wine press, oil press, living stone. It's amazing how much this biblical garden helps for me, which I'm head of the teachings and guidings in this place, how many hundreds of hours I shared with groups to teach them about the Bible.
Yeah.
And it is such a blessing. By the way, my younger brother, he designed all this. He designed it. And, so many experts came and they looked at the biblical garden. It was so beautiful. Who is the architect? And I told them, my younger brother. What is his name? They are ready to hear a big name.
Yeah.
No, he just he finished high school, so he studied something in high school. This amazing, that's what we found in our life.
Yes.
That when God is giving a gift, like Betzalel or Liav, these names biblical, He's giving it.
Yes.
He's giving it, and if you are faithful in what you are doing, He can use you for so beautiful thing. And it's such a blessing.
So we're sitting here right now in the hills around Jerusalem. I guess Jerusalem's pretty close to here. I mean, you're almost looking across at it, I think. Oh, it's that direction. Okay. I get turned around, walking around, but a lot of hillside here. So you spent most of your life in this area.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, you've also seen a lot of changes because you've lived your whole life here. Yeah. And you were also in the military, and how many wars have you been in?
In 5 of the
5 wars. Wow. So what was that like? So here you are, you're the first generation in the Holy Land that your father came here. And, you have a small community that, believe in the Messiah. And then the wars come and you're fighting side by side, of course, with other Israelis. What was the experience trying to defend the Holy Land?
First of all, for what you are fighting.
Yeah.
This is very important, and mainly as a paratrooper, the First War was 67 war.
Yes.
And for me, the reality of Jerusalem was every day.
Yeah.
As a child, a small child, the shooting, the legionnaires were shooting from the walls, right? And you wake, and everything is under you. And we were driving from Jerusalem, for instance, to Tel Aviv. Whenever we started getting down the slope, all of us, we had to bend down in the car because they were shooting from what we call today Nebi Samuel. They had a machine gun.
Yeah.
I mean, the main road was just under the machine gun of the legionnaires, right?
And this is prior to 67 that
Before
happened.
67.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Because Jerusalem was under Arab control then.
All around us, all was surrounded, all surrounded. And in those days, the reality really, really was, if you grow in such a city, right, that it's like no air.
Yes.
No air. You make a little mistake, like we were walking to Ramat Rachel one day, and just shooting on us, and you start finding something to hide. It was, but nobody saw that there is going to be any solution to this, and that's why I was born in a hospital, Hadassah Hospital, on Mount Olives, but it fell into the hands of the Jordanians. So Ben Gurion decided to build another Hadassah. He built another Hadassah, which is Ein Karem. And he finished it in 1966. Okay, I remember this year. I remember the celebrations. Nobody knew that in 1 year everything is going to change.
Wow.
You see? I remember they celebrated, they put the model of Jerusalem. There is a beautiful model of Jerusalem in 70 AD. It was ready in 1966.
Wow.
And first time you stand there, I was like 19 years old, and you see the model, and you see all what happens in the Arabic area that we never saw it, because we were on the Jewish side.
Right.
A year later, 67 war started.
Wow.
Look, I belong to the paratroopers. I was in regular army. We were fighting in Egypt. Others were fighting. Other my brothers were fighting against Syria army. Jordan was not supposed to be at all in this story. And King Hussein made, somebody will say, mistake, but I think it was God pushed him to enter to the war on Monday.
Yeah.
He entered 12 o'clock at noon, and that's what brought Israel to conquer the West Bank. and to release Jerusalem. And suddenly to be back, you see, the road to Jericho. Look, this was prophetical days, I have to say.
Well, this is my question. So, with your faith, and then also being in the military, do you feel, or did you experience, or do you see God's intervention into all this? Because do you see what you're able to do in the 6-Day War, for example, as miraculous?
Very exactly.
Like it defies logic.
Definitely. I want to tell you, I was open believer, totally open, because for me the Lord is number one in everything.
Yes.
So it's not that I try to do No, this is very, very strong.
Yes.
So as even young commander, right, and then officer, my faith is part of me.
Yes.
So in 67 war, I have to say that actually what happened to the soldiers themselves, I could almost catch them, gluing them. They wanted me to teach them Bible. Later on in Yom Kippur War, 6 years later, 73, I was really giving Bible studies deep in, where we have been in Africa. Because suddenly people, and even regular people, they felt that what we pass is something prophetical.
Yes.
You see, I don't speak about the religious people. And again, to be part of all this, to teach them Ezekiel 38:39. I can tell you things you can believe that what I passed. If you put my name in Google, you will find a lot of sharing about the war, what I passed in the wars. No doubt, I feel myself. Now I passed 70, right?
Yeah.
I feel 50, 40, I don't know. But I passed 70, that the way that God led me in this country all my life, this is something that I have a lot of responsibility with this past. You understand?
Yes.
Lots of responsibility. It's, when people talk about biblical miracles and so on, I was witnessing again and again and again. The modern.
Give me some example of maybe one example of a miracle that you feel like you witnessed.
Again, there are military, of course, things, and there are dozens, and I don't want to talk about myself because it's him, right? It's really him. But let me give you one little thing, not a big. The big things there are in books and so on. Yom Kippur War, it was 1973. This was the hardest.
Yes.
We were fighting, actually, lisrod. It is to survive.
Yeah.
There was no one over you. No one. We didn't have. We went to all kind of missions. No maps. No ammunitions. Even nothing. It was just as a commander. I had my 24 soldiers. I wanted them to get alive.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
And during, the war started 2:00 on Yom Kippur War, and from beginning, the moment we have heard that something happens, because too many ministers were driving, with their private cars to meet in Tel Aviv, people felt something happens. So just beginning, I told my wife the code of my unit. I told her, write down the code. If you hear it, write what you hear and tell me. I will know what to do with this. I had 10 minutes to decide what I take to the war.
Wow.
I remember 56 war was only 1 week. 67 war was 1 week.
Yeah.
I thought to myself, it will be maybe 2 weeks. For 2 weeks, you take one underground, 2 others, this one this. Which Bible to take, the small one or the War Bible, I called it, right? I took the War Bible. And altogether, I was more than 5.5 months away of home. You see, from beginning, it was far away harder than everything that we passed before. And when we came to the place where we got everything ready to enter inside, there was a terrible, terrible feeling around the soldiers. Terrible. And somebody comes to me and says, Aryeh, you don't feel what happens here? I said, what happened? He said, I don't know. I'm ready. I'm preparing myself, you know. You don't understand what happens. You're looking around you. I'm looking around you, all, you know, the unit, everyone is. You're the only one that is laughing here. Don't you see it? Mm-hmm. And then I caught myself. I looked, all faces, hundreds of people, you know, faces like going to cemetery. Mm. And I was the only one, so I caught myself. To be like them, you know, I cannot. Yeah. I cannot. You know, there is a joy in you that is going out, whatever passed. And I understood just from this moment that I have to be on the side of people. I have to really encourage people. And I can tell you, some of them it's already more than 40 years. So many of them fell into post-traumatic thing because of what we passed.
Yes.
That it's hard to believe. And if you ask me, look, I was in situation, very hard battle, very, very hard battle. I don't want now because it's at least half an hour to tell really, really, really in details what happened there. But the greatest, I tell you, the greatest miracle for me, that me and all my brothers, we are 3 paratroopers that were one in the Chinese farm, another was fighting on Suez. I was with Ariel Sharon to Ismailia, really the hardest battles. One tank commander that had to change 3 times tank because all the time he got a shell, 1 killed, 2 killed, you know. After 1 shell in a tank, most of the people cannot go back to a tank.
Right.
You can ask them. And after all what we passed, you know, no post-traumatic in my family, among my brothers, no any scratches. And I don't speak about the physical. I got a bullet here. Okay, operation. They take the bullet. Who knows about it? You understand? But the spiritual things, it didn't enter to any one of my brothers. And I know very well some of them what they passed. You know, for me it is the greatest miracle. And in one of these situations was that we entered into Egyptian area. We were you know, you have Arrowhead, and we, the unit of the paratroopers, we were really
You're the tip of the spear, yeah.
And our commander, Ariel Sharon, and he was pushing to conquer Nufeisha Junction, to conquer a certain place that is, if we conquer this is the main road from Ismailia to Cairo. Mm-hmm. And we were already 2-3 hours after the American and the Russians were posting on us a ceasefire. And we're continuing fighting. And another one is killed, and a third one, and the fourth one. And we know, and we enter into very hard darkness. And we were so inside the Egyptian area that suddenly, you know, we have heard, stop, don't, you know, continue forward. Just minutes before this, 3 of the tanks that were not far from us, every one of them got like 9 RPG shells. And burning with the people inside. And now how to go back? I mean, we were commanded to go back to where our forces were at 6 o'clock. We had no maps. The sky was so red of the smoke of the burning. You know, vehicles are burning. You don't see sky. You don't see any star. One of my professionals was navigating, right? Jumping and navigating in desert, wherever you want. I couldn't see 1 star. I couldn't see. And, you know, the high commander there came to me. He put on me, you have to bring us back. And I remember I looked on him. I told him, look, I have no idea where I am. Because, you know, we're continuing north. That's what I knew. But God will bring us back. Now, if you say something like this in the army, come on, let us have another one. Yeah. And whatever I tell you, you do. Right. It's clear. He said, whatever you say, we will do. I tell you to run, we run. I tell you to jump to the right, to jump to the side. Whatever I say, I don't know what I'm going to tell you. And so we arranged all the group. We were more than 30. Most of them were wounded. Everyone that was wounded in this part could walk. But those, one was, his leg was cut, another one his hand. We had to carry them because they lost so much blood. And imagine now a group of 30 people like this, and I'm in front of them, all around Egyptian and Israeli. You know, because nobody knew where he is. Shooting all around, sudden shootings. And as we started, I saw a light. This is maybe the greatest thing that happened. I saw a light. Later on, you know, rabbis asked me, what was this light? Describe it. And I say, I cannot describe it. It was more strong than any light that I experienced. Like, you know, when you take a tank projector and you open the projector, it can bring light to 2-3 kilometers.
Right.
They were much stronger. I remember the angle, like 15 degrees angle. And what I felt that I don't control myself anymore. That the light is controlling me. Later on, they interviewed journalists, rabbis, the soldiers, and they just repeated what I tell you. And as we continued, as we start moving, I hearing myself crying, shouting, run, run, run. And we, with all the wounded, with all this, we ran like half a minute, and just behind us, where we have been, they fell 80 millimeters, 120 millimeters, 160 millimeter artillery. You know, it's earthquake.
Yeah.
And we are falling down. The last bomb, you know, boom. We raise up, and I saw soldiers. It was very dark, but you can see in the eyes, you know, that like the nerves are broken, right? And how you know, how you know, how you knew. And what I said, that I said, the light, the light. We continued, jump to the right. Now there were holes because it was not far from Ismailia, and they prepared a sewage system, new sewage system. So they dug holes of like 10 feet on 10 feet on 10 feet, all the area. I didn't know, but we entered to this area, and I noticed that there is one of these holes, and I'm crying, jump inside. We fall with all the wounded people just inside, and we got again 160 millimeter to the hole next to us. And I'm talking about 10 feet. Myself, I was thrown in the air. Really, my body, right from the explosion and all the dunes, right? And falling down on one of the soldiers, right? I was sure that half of the group now are killed. And iron numbers, nobody was scratched from this. So slowly we started getting out. And people were crying. Nerves of people were broken. And again, how you knew it? Because, you know, it was seconds from the shouting to jump when it fell. And they said, the only thing that I said is the light, and this is the truth. It was like I felt, later I tried to explain to a rabbi, right, that I felt like a little piece of sewing, you know, and this was like a huge magnet. And, you know, it catch you, and what this little metal sewing can do. I didn't control myself at all, just the light. It continued. Later on, we were sitting together trying like 45 to 1 hour. It continued this and again and again and again. And suddenly, I almost felt we are very close to our people. And in this situation, you know, friendly fire usually is the reason why, you know, so many. And God gave me wisdom. I didn't see any more light. It vanished. And the Lord really gave me wisdom how to make, you know, how to make the friendly, not to get shot. When our group, right, some very famous names there, I don't want to say name in this kind of thing, they looked on us when they saw us. They didn't believe that we'll be able to do it. They didn't believe. I mean, all the artillery that was following us, all this. And we are there.
Yeah.
Look, this appearance of this light, definitely, this was the strongest thing that happened in my life. And at the beginning, you don't understand why it is. I mean, you just know one thing. You know that the moment this high officer asked me to be in charge of bringing the people back, it's not me at all. I talk to him like as if I am, I don't know, general. Mm-hmm. Whatever I tell you, you do. I mean, I know it came from Gideon, from reading Bible so much all my life.
Yes.
You understand? It's something that what Gideon knew. He was not general. He was a simple man.
Right.
But this is what I felt. Very, very strong. And, of course, all the glory only to God. Whoever wanted to interview me, and there are a lot of interviews, I started always, I'm a Jewish Messianic. And you have to know, if you interview me, I'm going to talk about the Lord Yeshua.
Right.
You see, I'm not going to hide it. Okay, thank you, maybe we'll meet you another time, and so on, so on. But of course, it affected some very, very influential rabbis. Mm-hmm. Came to our unit. We were deep in Egypt, right? Came to our unit to speak with me, some of them all night long.
Wow.
Because they've heard it, they've heard from other soldiers, they have heard what happened, and they wanted to know what is this light.
Did anybody else see the light or just you?
Only me saw the light. Only me saw the light. But all of them, just, that's what they said. Because when they interviewed them, they said that our commander, he just talked about the light, the light, the light. Only me saw it.
Wow.
No one else. So, this, I can say, I passed so many things, but this was not so much for me. Because really, I was ready to everything, even to be killed, not to be, it was not for me. You know, as a tour guide now and Bible teacher, I'm guiding non-stop in Israel. When I'm in Caesarea Maritima, and I'm there on the stage where Paul was standing, Acts chapter 25, 26, and giving his speech to Agrippa, to Bernice, you see, to the Roman procurators, and telling them, I was on the road to Damascus, and suddenly, and he described it, right?
Yes.
A light came down. I understand what he's talking. Yeah. You see? Yes. I understand, and I will understand it till the rest of my life, what he was talking. It's something that you are not the same man anymore. You saw the light. You see? So I had privilege to pass it. I know that there are thousands of others that maybe will never have this privilege. And that's why my, again, responsibility is very strong. Yeah. And that's why one of the reasons that I felt I'm finishing with music, mm-hmm. and I was very deep in classical music, you know, in all what I passed. This is my music now, right? The Lord, and to point on Him. This is the only anchor that we can trust. And this is why I'm living here, and this is why we are raising family here and so many more families, because it is the only reason, right, for everything.
So now that you're the son of the first Messianic Jew in Israel and fought in 5 wars, all the experiences that you've had, with all the years and all the experience and wisdom gained, what does your faith mean to you now?
Okay, you know, we have 6, how do you call them, senses, right?
Yes.
People call faith like sense number 7. For me, it's the strongest sense. You understand?
Yes.
You can smell, you can touch, you can this. Faith, I will say, I feel it in my life, this is the strongest sense that every day I feel it. Every day. For me, I love teach Bible. I love guide people in the desert, in Sinai. I really love to do it. But the main thing is really I want to see people changes. I really want to see people getting ability to smile. You understand?
Yeah.
Going to hell sometimes, but still. Because what Jesus shared is so simple. You know, I admire why people don't try to taste it. To taste it and see that it's good.
Yeah.
Why they are rebelling, why they're fighting, why they are, trying to get and everything. So for me, I would say whatever I do, and I believe whatever I will do in the future, is just for this purpose. You see, to glorify God, to glorify Jesus. And mainly after the childhood that I passed. When I've heard such cursing against these two.
Yes.
And I remember even a child, I said, if God will give me life, the most important thing that I will do, to give them glory. Because they deserve it. You understand?
Yes.
And mainly for our nation, from our nation. So, faith means everything, really everything. And I'm so glad now I passed 70 years old and I see all the big family, all my grandchildren, and some of them finished army, some of them, in the army now. And to see how they are standing is witnessing every place that they are. Really witnessing, living witnessing to who is the Lord.
Well, I'm almost speechless, because as you're describing what your faith means to you, the light just came out behind you. It's an amazing thing to behold, and I think the light is also in your eyes. It shines. So,
but it needs. When I used to be a musician, every day you have to practice 4 hours.
yes,
Conducting. You have every. It's a lot of work. Till you are 100% right. It's practicing.
yes,
The same is in our faith. If I'm not feeling myself every day, today I was like 2 hours reading the Word in my way and signing. I like to put colors on my Bible,
yeah,
right? In my way, it's a system that I built to myself. But if I'm not giving this time every day, don't expect from me anything. You see?
Yes.
Don't expect. It's something that you have exactly like in sport, right? I used to do a lot of sport when I was 55 years ago, right? A lot of sport. And again, hours and hours of training.
yeah,
So faith is not coming just, like drops of water. You have to take time to dedicate. One of the things that I'm one of the elders of this assembly is about the Shabbat.
yeah,
God commanded a day, rest, rest from the world.
yeah,
Very hard work here, you see, but to nourish, how do you say, to nourish
yes,
your faith. You see? And of course, he's studying the word, and studying it in Hebrew. It's so rich. There is a verse, Im lo ta'aminu, lo te'amenu. You cannot translate it. It's from Chronicles, Second chapter 20. Something like, if you don't trust, you will not be trusted.
yes,
Something like this. And this is what I think about faith also. You see, it is something that you have to walk in it, you have to live in it, you have to practice it all the time, not just when, it's very hard, God help me. No, this is it is something that you have to live in it, your daily life. I love very much Deuteronomy, very much. I love the speech of Moses, so rich. After they finished 40 years in the desert.
Yeah.
So rich about how to walk in faith. You see, not just theoretically to study others, but walk. Walk. And you will fall 7, you will fall 70 times. But you're always there to lift you and to continue. For me, faith is like running a race. Paul, I like it. He's talking 8 different places about running the race.
Yeah.
And you ask yourself, why? From where Paul, which is kind of orthodox, what he knows about sport.
right,
But he was 2 years in Caesarea Maritima, in prison, so-called, 6-star prison. And that's what he saw. I don't know if you have been in Caesarea Maritima
Not
or
yet.
the sea. Herod built there a huge hippodrome and invited Olympic Games there to take part. And Paul, when he was there in his so-called prison, he saw people training and training and training. And Paul is talking about running a race.
Yeah.
Our faith is running. You see? We're not outside the stadium. We're not sitting and watching others running. We are in the stadium running. This is for me faith.
Yeah.
You see the difference?
Yes.
Always there will be people that will point on you. But the moment you are inside, and like Paul says, with all the cloud above us that finished the race, it's so beautiful. For me, this life as a race is one of the most great things that I could wish, right?
Yes.
Running the race and never said, I finished it. Like Paul said only in Timothy, right? Chapter 4, I finished the race now. The cup is ready. The death is coming.
Yes.
And now he talks in past tense. I finished. I did. But when you're in the race, when you're in the faith, never, never, you see, never said, I finished. And this is one of the things that I feel on myself and giving to my children, my grandchildren. I love to be with them.
Yeah.
Take them all around the country.
Yeah.
Teach them all the time new things. And make them better racers, you can call it. So there are lot of things
Yeah.
that I find in of the faith that I was walking, a lot of things. And I thank God for them. And always, always don't forget to encourage people around you. Never forget to do it. You know, many times we are like vagabonds. That's what I feel.
Yeah.
We're like people that walking with, in the desert. And you see another one, And all what you can do is to stop him. Do you know where you are? And you look on his map, and because for me the Word of God is a map. Topographical map, but the best map. So it shows me where I am. Do you know where you are? If he's humble enough, he will say, I think I lost my way. So what I can do, come on, brother, let me show you where I think I am and you are. And if it's true, you see, 2 miles away, the direction, there is a spring. Let us go together. You understand this, the sensitivity that I felt among my people, Israelis. It's never that I know you don't know. And this one of the mistakes that I saw when so many times missionaries came to these people, to our country. And they tried all the time to force you that we don't know, they know. You understand?
Yeah.
And it was very hard for me because God calls our nation blind people. And the worst thing that you can do to a blind is to show him a map and ask him, don't you understand? Don't you see where, if you have senses, you don't tell a blind man, don't you see? You understand the point?
Yes.
So this is one of the things that it's a rule. I think in all people that knows me and around me, never go this way. Always come, give a hand, let us go together. I think my map is, this is the way that I look on the Bible, on the Word of God, on faith, on walking in faith.
Well, it's a beautiful message. I very much appreciate you sharing it with us. And I know that you've inspired a great many people today. So thank you for that.
Amen.
Amen.
I really enjoyed that interview with Ari and Patrick, and personally, I've enjoyed this whole journey. All of these series have led me to feel like I virtually was there. The interviews have just been so compelling. If this is something you want to own, and really you should, so that you can pass this along to so many people out there that want to have the same journey, the same experience that you are feeling. We want you to do that. And Patrick, you have lots of ways that people can do that, right?
It was really important to us to be able to create this in a way that, number one, we can get it out to the world globally so anybody can watch it. But number two, so people can immerse in the experience by owning it. So what we have for you are a variety of packages, different price points, different bonuses, etc. But we know that we have something there for everybody. So number one, we truly appreciate your support for Christ Revealed. Number two, I encourage you to go look at the different packages that we have and maybe not only think about what you might want, but I'm sure there's people in your life that you care about that you know would benefit from Christ Revealed, and you can pick something out for them too. So this has been such a passion project for us. We really feel like it's something that can change people's lives in a very profound way, and we wanted to make sure that it was available so that you could get it and also get it to other people that you care about. So we have coming up, in addition to what you just saw, part one of my three-part interview with Greg Koukl, and additionally, make sure you stay tuned for the Jesus Boat. Greg, thanks so much for doing this. Can you introduce yourself and give us a little bio sketch?
Well, Greg Koukl is a start, and I actually became a follower of Christ as a young adult, 23 years old. I was raised in kind of a Christian tradition, so to speak, but when I became 18, like a lot of people, I just walked away from that because I had no conviction it was actually true. Mm-hmm. And then this was during the 60s, and there was a lot of counterculture things going on and a whole lot of new options coming in. Mm-hmm. And frankly, you know, when you're 18 in the 60s, you don't want religion interfering with your social life. So it was very appealing to me to kind of move with the times. Mm-hmm. And I thought that doing your own thing, which was part of the vibe of the time, it was a slogan of the time, that would really give me freedom. Turned out, though, that, and I think we've learned since then, that it's created a lot more problems than just mere freedom. And when I was about 23 years old, my younger brother began to tell me an aspect of Christianity that I'd never heard before, and that was grace, the grace of God. I'd heard about the law, and you don't actually have to hear about the law to know about the law. Everybody's aware that there's something wrong with them. It's not just the world. It's us. Mm-hmm. And that resonated with me. And when he told me about the grace of God, the confidence that I could have that there was a way for me to be accepted by God, no strings attached, so to speak. That it was not based on what I did. It was based on what God did for me. That in Christianity, it's the only religion in the world where God rescues us, we don't rescue ourselves. Okay? That resonated with me. And over a period of probably 6 months, thinking about it and asking a lot of questions and pushing back a lot and walking away from the conversation lots of times, I finally just developed a conviction. I don't know how else to describe it, Patrick. This deep conviction that this account of reality was actually true. Mm-hmm. That Jesus was who he claimed to be, that he had a claim on my life. And so I decided to follow him. Smart money's on him, therefore the smartest thing that I could do is follow behind him and follow him. Now I've been doing that for 46 years or 44 years, or I lose track. It's been a long time. And it's not been easy, but it's been real. It's been reality. And in that time, not only have I grown in my understanding of God and how to walk in the real world with him and engage the real world on his terms, not on mine, I've also had lots of fun opportunities and challenging opportunities to help other people do the same. And one of the things that I have really tried to spend a lot of time with in the last 40 years is, I mentioned that the smart money is on Jesus. I didn't used to think that. I used to think I was too smart to be a Christian.
Right.
And as I was exposed more, not only to Christianity and the rationale and reasons and evidence in favor of it, and also to the same kind of thinking regarding alternate worldviews and seeing them fall so far short, I wanted to give myself more and more to making the case for Christ, mm-hmm. for Christianity, for the Christian view of reality as the true view, as the accurate view. and to help other people to see that as well and walk in that and be encouraged by that. A lot of what I do, defending the faith, is not just defending the faith in front of critics, but also giving Christians the tools to face the toughest critic they will ever face, and that's themselves. Because for every one of us, we run into those times we wonder, am I barking up the wrong tree here? Am I wishing on a star? And am I just trying to convince myself of something that I like or something that I want when it's not actually true? Especially when we encounter difficult times. And that's when, for me, all of this other information that I help teach other people and study, and that's when it becomes most personal to me, because I realize, no, there are good reasons to be confident that what I believe is true actually is true. And so that's why I've given so much of my life now to this enterprise and trying to help Christians face the critics on the outside and the critic on the inside.
You use two terms. I'm wondering if you make a distinction between them. One is faith, the other is conviction.
Yeah.
Are they similar, the same? How do you see it?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because I am using them as synonyms, okay? But I like the word conviction better than faith. And the problem with the word faith, Patrick, is that it's too easy nowadays for people to attach words to it.
Right.
Like when you say faith, faith film, a faith tradition, a person of faith, people attach words like blind or leap of.
Right.
And they have the concept, well, that's your truth, he has his truth, and everybody has their own faith, okay? So they contrast the concept of faith in that sense with knowledge. You have knowledge about things, facts, evidence, truth in the capital T sense. Then you've got faith, and isn't that nice? And small t, true for you kind of deal. And so I've tried to avoid the language because I know that people will naturally tend to do that, that the word faith has been largely corrupted, I think, for our use nowadays to communicate what I mean, and I think communicate with what the biblical worldview is, how it's meant to be understood, and what the Bible itself characterizes. It doesn't characterize a leap of faith. It characterizes a step of trust based on things you have become convinced of, and we're convinced of them for reasons. That's the biblical model. And so that's actually a really fair distinction. I want to really stay away from what most people think of as faith, and I want to talk about my convictions about the way things actually are and the reasons why I'm convinced that things are that way.
So basically, when you talk in terms of conviction, it sort of alludes to a conclusion that's a byproduct of an intellectual process that's reasoned, that gets me there.
That's right.
And that's why you might be misrepresenting what you're really saying if you say faith.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think the word conviction has a certain feeling to it that is just more substantial than the way people think about the word faith. And that's why I've tried to eliminate the word from my vocabulary and find substitute synonyms that really more powerfully and substantively convey what I have in mind. And I don't mean leap of.
Yes.
I don't mean blind.
Right. Yeah.
I mean conviction.
And this is important, because obviously we're all searching, and the world, I think, we're here, and there's a lot of questions that one might have as you talked about your journey, and then kind of how you got on a track. Right. So now in the Christian convictions that you have, what are they born of in particular? Are there maybe 3 or 4 or 5 salient things that were organized as kind of the line of thinking that got you on a track that said, I now have this conviction and I feel very solid in this conviction because of certain milestones in my journey?
Yeah, there's actually 2 answers to that question, Patrick, because you're asking somewhat of a historical question, but you're also asking somewhat of an intellectual process, okay? Yes. And for me, those were 2 entirely different things. Okay. I have good friends that started out as atheists, confronted the evidence, were convinced by the evidence, became Christians, okay? And actually, most people who do what I do had some story kind of like that, which is great. In my case, though, I did not have all of my questions answered. I was not in possession of all the evidence that I now know about in favor of Christianity. I was on an existential journey, if you will, that had to do with my own meaning and purpose in life, and understanding whether or not God existed and what claim, if any, he had on my own life, and how he would maybe manifest in the world. And so with those very general concepts in play, I, in my own journey, became convinced that God was real and that Jesus was God's Son, come to earth to rescue me from my own rebellion against God so that I could be forgiven and enter into a friendship with him, which is what he's always wanted from the beginning, okay? There were no Kalam cosmological arguments, you know, there was no teleological or moral argument. There wasn't all this fancy stuff for me. There wasn't answers to all of my questions, which I had. Rather, there was a deepening conviction that I was onto something that was really true. And see, I have to be careful even how I use the word true nowadays, because it's a relativized word, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what I say. So when you say true or truth, you know, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, and it's even discomforting for me to talk about my journey,
Right.
because, okay, well, that's nice. He has his journey. Now let's talk to this person over here who has a different journey, as if all journeys are equal. And just significant for individual people. Some people like one thing and not the other, and that's just all you can say about it. It's approaching the whole enterprise like it's a dessert.
Right.
You know, is it ice cream, or is it cake, or is it donuts, or what is your preference here? But that's not my view at all.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what the world is actually like.
Right.
Either God exists or he doesn't. Okay? If he doesn't, when you think about it, this has massive ramifications for the way one lives.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
If he does, well, that's the flip side now. This also has massive ramifications in another sense. So I have become convinced that Christianity is true, first from the existential kind of sense, although my sense of it being true was still the same sense I'm talking about now. True to the world, true in the sense of fact, true in the sense that if you disagree with it, then you're wrong.
Right.
That's the sense of truth that I'm talking about. Now, I could be wrong in my assessment, but I want to at least be clear in the kind of claim that I'm making. Now, it was after I became a Christian that I became familiar and acquainted with the unbelievable amount of evidence, the thinking, the thoughtful enterprise of justifying all these elements of Christianity. So I mentioned as a foundational thing God's existence. Okay, well, I can't will myself to be an atheist right now, and the reason is I would have to make commitments to so many things that are so radically counterintuitive, that is so inconsistent with the way that I encounter the world and I discover the world, and frankly, the way almost everybody encounters and discovers the world, okay? That I just couldn't bring myself to make a claim so contrary to the obvious evidence around me, okay? And so since I have become possessed of that wonderful information, this has really created a much more solid foundation for me as a follower of Christ. In so many different areas, I can speak to the challenges that people have raised. My daughter, who's now 12 years old, but when she was about 7 years old, she was baptized as a 6-year-old as a Christian. So she believed in Jesus. But when she was 7 or maybe 8, she said, "Papa, why do we believe God is true?" It was kind of her way of saying, how do we know God's actually real? I believe he's real, but how do we know it? So now she's asking a question that goes from belief that to confidence in the belief. That's knowledge, okay? Reasons for it. Well, see, now I have to answer my youngster in a way that she can understand, but it's substantive. And I thought about it for a few minutes, and this phrase came to my mind, and I realized when it came to mind, and then I told it to her, that it really captured my whole approach to this entire enterprise. I said, "Honey, the reason that we believe that God is true is because he's the best explanation for the way things are.
Right.
He's the best explanation for the way things are. In other words, there's explanatory power in the Christian worldview. It helps us make sense of the whole world.
No, and this is the interesting thing, is that you're talking about a rational approach. You're basically saying that reason supports your view, not that you have to cast away reason in order to adopt it.
Right.
And quite frankly, as you just described, an atheistic point of view for you would be irrational.
Yeah, I just would take exception with the phrase "for you" because that could sound like a relativistic one. I am convinced that it is irrational. I can give you the reasons why I think that it falls so far short of the evidence and of good reason.
Yeah,
In
and
that sense, yes.
and we talk about relative truth is sort of a contradiction in terms, right?
It's a misuse of the word truth.
Yeah.
Classically, truth meant that your beliefs fit the way the world actually is.
Right.
And so if your truth is relative to you, then all you're saying is you're reducing the word truth to mere belief.
Right.
But you're not answering the question of whether your beliefs are actually so.
Yeah.
That is actually true.
Yeah. Yeah, which is where it seems like those two things can't be used together. They're incompatible. Yeah.
This is the trend,
Yeah.
and I want to reverse the trend because I don't think it is an accurate characterization of the way Christianity has dealt with those ideas over the last 2,000 years. Okay, and I don't think it serves us well as human beings trying to make sense out of our world.
Right.
You know, if you think about it, when you say, well, that's your truth, and you believe something opposite, that's your truth, that's patronizing.
Right.
Because what it's saying is, your beliefs are false.
Right.
But you believe them, and I'll smile and nod my head and patronize you about your, and it's almost condescending, about your belief. But it's not really true. Don't act like this is reality. No, it's not. So now what sounds like a very tolerant approach really turns out, in fact, to be something that's rather condescending. And my feeling is, why don't we just man up to this and say, I think I'm right, you think you're right. Nothing wrong with that, but we can't both be right because we disagree. So let's try to figure out who's actually right. Maybe we're both wrong. Maybe somebody else is right. But let's not patronize each other by saying, oh, that's your truth, isn't that nice? I have my truth, and now what?
Yeah, and that could lead to a pretty bad place, right? I mean, if you think about it, because if truth can be relative, then can't morality be relative too? And then if you have, and that way it's kind of a moral blank check to say.
Listen, well, see, now you're onto something. I mean, this is the kind of thinking people ought to be doing,
right?
Because they think, well, okay, morality is relative. That's good, because then if I'm sleeping with my girlfriend, then you have no grounds to object.
Right.
Oh, right. Okay. But then I have no grounds to object to the war in Vietnam.
Right.
Which was my situation. I was a relativist when I was a non-Christian in the university. I didn't want anybody telling me who I can sleep with, but I wanted to tell somebody else who they could fight with. That was an immoral war. Well, wait a minute. If there is no morality, then what are my grounds for objecting against the war in Vietnam or any other hot-button issue that is popular with a lot of people that otherwise would consider themselves relativists? Think of it this way, Patrick. Lots of people want to be relativists. They don't want people to be relativists towards them. Right. They want them to be virtuous, And so it's an all or nothing enterprise if we're going to be intellectually honest.
Right.
If there is no objective morality, then there's no objective morality.
Right.
Then you can't say something like morals are relative, therefore it's wrong for you to push your morality on me.
Right.
Well, it can't be wrong to do that. That's a contradiction there. And you can't start complaining about the problem of evil, which pretty much everybody has that complaint, and I understand it, because I think there is real evil in the world. But if relativism is true, that eviscerates the charge. There can't be any real evil in the world if there's no morality to defined departures from good, which we call evil. So yeah, there's a poison pill in there that a lot of people are not aware of.
And this is where it really kind of, I think the rubber meets the road in many respects, because it's, culturally, what are conclusions that we draw?
That's right.
How do we argue for them? And how do we guide our lives, and et cetera, based on all this? And so this is really very philosophical in nature, right? It's adopting a view of reality. having your rules of evidence, and then figuring out, okay, what's the right way to behave based on all of this?
Sure, sure. Well, it's a philosophical way kind of discussing it as we're knocking it around, because we're trying to be careful and clear about these things, and we're trying to be intentional about addressing these things. But the fact is, every human being goes through this process in some way or another, maybe not with some of the terms that we're using, but they're trying to figure out what is the good, after all, and what makes the good good.
Right.
If you think of politics, politics are an exercise of the appropriate use of power.
Right.
So politicians or political institutions have power. What is the right way for them to use the power? Notice the moral term that just snuck into our conversation. Right. But this is something that people are asking all the time. So we talk about rights. Rights at their heart are moral claims.
Yes.
Because when I claim to have a right, I am also expressing simultaneously a moral obligation that you have to act towards me in a certain way. People talk about rights claims all the time, but they aren't thinking about the moral dimension. So what I'm saying is, in a certain sense, the moral life is part of the human condition. We are human beings that are built this way uniquely, which I think is another evidence for the Christian worldview, because we are able to make sense out of that. We're made in the image of God. We are separate in a very vital way from everything else that's been made, all other sentient creatures. But this is the human condition. This is the way we operate. This is the way we work. We can't get away from these things. And so a lot of my project here with understanding Christianity is to try to engage people on that level. Even though I've got advanced degrees in theology and philosophy, I don't want to blind people with philosophy. I want to talk to them and say, look, these are things that you address all the time. And you know what? If we talked for a little while, just about whatever, I'd hear things in your conversation that betrayed deep convictions you have about the world.
Right.
For example, you'll say to your kids, don't treat each other like animals. Why do you say that? If we're just animals, and let's say the Darwinian project tells the whole story, why not treat other people like animals? See, I think that people say this because they have an intuitive sense that man is special in the system in a way that no materialistic, Darwinistic schema can account for.
Right.
We can account for that. So here we are. Annabeth, my daughter, it's the best explanation for the way things are. And there are dozens and dozens of things like that that come up naturally in people's conversation that they don't think about making sense of in light of a bigger picture of the world. And I'm just trying to connect the dots for people, because I'm convinced that Christianity properly understood really is true. The biblical worldview is the story of reality,
right.
Okay? And I think that I can give people good reason to at least see how that's the case. Whether they fully invest themselves in it is another matter. But that's between them and God.
Is there a certain key dots that you connected that kind of started having things fall together for you?
For me personally?
Yes. Or that you put together for others who you're trying to communicate this message to?
Yeah. For me, not so much personally, because of, as I described, that process, me becoming a Christian. And it was later that these things would kind of come together. Now, as I look at the whole thing, I have a tendency to more systematize it.
Yes.
So, and what would be the foundation of the whole thing? Well, it would have to be God.
Right.
In our story, starts in the beginning,
right.
God. So God's the main player of our story. He's the one who is responsible for everything else. God created the heavens and the earth. However that's ultimately construed and worked out, that's a basic general statement. He's responsible for everything. Now, if he made everything, it belongs to him. And that's the whole concept of kingdom, a king in his domain,
right.
Okay? So that's foundational, okay? Another thing that's foundational for me is the idea that God, in addition to everything that he made, which is pretty cool, he made human beings as a very unique, for lack of a better word, creature, okay? Humans are different. They're similar to everything else. They're contingent. They're not little gods. They're things, okay? But they're things of a very particular sort. And what distinguishes human beings from all other sentient creatures is not that they have a soul. These other sentient creatures have souls too. That's a standard teaching in the story, the biblical story, the account of reality. and the church has always taught that, okay? It's the kind of soul that humans have. We have a soul that bears the imprint of God himself. We are like God in a certain fashion. And this allows us to be the kind of creature that can be in friendship with God, okay? It's just like you and I can have a relationship different than you and, Fido or Fluffy or whatever, And, some people prefer that relationship, but, it's not the same gravity of kind of relationship that humans can have. So there's a...
Let me ask you this, because you've used this term a couple of times. I want to understand the context, friendship.
Yeah.
When you say I have a friendship with Jesus or friendship with God,
Right.
What do you mean by that?
I mean that there's a personal element to it. God is not simply an abstract concept. He is not a prime mover, like in Aristotle's sense. He's not just out there that kind of a mathematical construct that solves certain philosophical problems for us. I think he does solve those things, but he's also personal. He's infinite, but he's also personal. He's accessible. He's able to be in relationship with. Incidentally, this is different than, say, the Muslim concept of God, where this God is grand and noble and powerful and moral and all these other things, but he's very far removed personally. The idea of having a personal relationship with God is not part of Islam, but it is central to Christianity. Now, I use the word friendship partly because the phrase personal relationship has been used so much, it's starting to lose some of its punch, And so I'm trying to look for a fresher word that will communicate the same thing. And that's why I think of the notion of friendship. And actually, Jesus says at one point to his disciples, they had gotten to a point where you're my friends now. I'm telling you what I'm doing. We're connected in a different kind of way. And so I think this is something that the biblical model offers to us, and I think it's very appealing. Friendship with God, and it's a bit awesome in the classic sense of the word, and that we can have such a thing is a testimony to the rescue plan itself, which is probably the next thing on the agenda.
So let's go there.
All right. Now keep in mind we have a friendship with God, but this is a friendship that could be betrayed.
Right.
And that's exactly what happened. And so there's a rebellion, and this was not a good thing. And this means that man is rebelling against his sovereign, and a whole bunch of dominoes fall as a result of it. When you're raising kids, and a lot of parents can understand this, you say yes and no to your kids. Do this, don't do that. We understand a little bit of how the world works, and we know that if our children do the wrong things, that they're going to break something. Maybe it's a vase, maybe it's Papa's tool.
Or their arm.
Pardon me?
Or their own arm.
Or their arm, yeah. Or a relationship, or a life. Right. And sometimes the breakage is irreparable, and so we have boundaries, right? Well, God's the same way. And what happened is when our first parents, Adam and Eve, rebelled against their sovereign, they broke the world. They broke the whole world. They broke their relationship with God. The friendship was severed. They broke their own souls. They broke their relationship with each other. Very soon in the narrative you can see now, oh, that woman who you gave me, God, she was the one who told me to do this, pointing the fingers. And then soon after that in the narrative you got all kinds of nasties that are happening through the whole human race. And so now what? Man is separated from God. He is in rebellion to God and to others. He is now slave to a new master, Satan, who's not a guy with red tights and a pitchfork. He's a real powerful, a personal force in the world that is a mortal enemy of the king. And man is also enslaved now to his own corrupted nature, which the story calls the flesh. This is big trouble. And the king's mad. And he ought to be. Now what? Well, he could have lowered the boom, but he didn't. He decides to establish a rescue plan. And in his plan, God steps down. God gets low. God comes in among us and becomes a man himself, never ceasing to be God, but now taking on to his divinity also humanity in the person of Jesus of Nazareth. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And then later on, and quoting the opening lines of the Gospel of John, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. Now, I don't know about you, Patrick, but I think that's the greatest line in the whole story. I mean, the first line is pretty cool, you know. In the beginning, God created that. That's awesome. But this, God becoming a man, being one of us to rescue us, that's sublime.
Yes.
That takes humility. And this is exactly what later writers describe Jesus having done, this great act of humility by becoming a man to rescue us. And he rescues us by making a trade. We're pretty nasty. We're made of good stuff, but we went wrong, okay, and we're guilty. Jesus is made of good stuff, and he doesn't go wrong. He does everything that we should have done, but we didn't. He does it. Where we failed, he succeeds in all ways, and especially before the Father. So he's got the goods, we got the bads, and he trades. He takes our badness on himself so that he can give us his goodness. And that trade took place on a small cropping of hill on the outside of Jerusalem. The locals called it Golgotha, the place of the skull, but we know it as Calvary, the place of the cross.
Right.
And on that hill, he took, in those 3 hours that darkness shrouded the cross, he took all the punishment that we deserve for our crimes against God. Our rap sheet was nailed to his cross so that now we could be forgiven because Jesus, well, the standard way of putting it is paid the price. But we say this kind of thing, and I don't think people understand it. Now maybe the way I've just described it, you get a little sense of it. Jesus paid for my crime so that I could go free. And not just go free through forgiveness, God's mercy, but now I can get the righteousness, the merit of Jesus himself. That's part of the trade. He, the Father, made him, Jesus, who knew no sin, to be sin on our behalf that we might become the righteousness of God in him. That's the trade. The Reformers called it the marvelous exchange. I was just citing from Paul there in 2 Corinthians chapter 5. But this is a magnificent, unbelievable gift that God has given us at his cost. And this then rounds it out. Really, all that's left now of the basic story, the core of it, which is what you asked about, is that a gift is being offered us. We can either say yes or no. If we say no to Jesus making the payment, then we pay ourselves. And I don't know why people are so mystified about Jesus being the only way of salvation, because he's the only one to solve the problem. You say no to what Jesus did? Okay, no, you're on your own. Are you guilty or not? If you're guilty, you pay. This is not going to be a pretty picture, okay? God offers mercy. You say no to mercy, then you're on your own, okay? But the decision that any person makes about that offer will determine where they spend eternity, to put it simply. Whether they spend eternity expelled from God's presence. Jesus said, "Depart from me." And that was, as he was describing this judgment process, and isolated away from the presence of God. And just as a point of information, if we are made for friendship with God and we are isolated from God forever, we will be ruined for that which we were made, and that will be hell, okay? In other words, it will be torment, and that's part of it, forever. But if we lay down our arms, receive the pardon that God offers, enter into his family, we enter into the best life we could ever imagine, forever. As C.S. Lewis so wonderfully put it, the door that we've been knocking on all of our lives will finally open. The yearning in our hearts, which has always been for the Father, will one day be fully satisfied. We will be his, and he will be ours forever. And that is happiness beyond what any of us could possibly imagine.
You spoke along the way about evil,
Yes.
and the presence of evil on earth. So,
Right.
how in your studies and in your experience, how do you contextualize evil in everything else that you're talking about? Why does it exist?
Yeah. Let me put it this way, because I don't think most people have heard it this way. They think that the problem of evil is a problem for Christianity, and for any theism, but certainly Christianity. And what I want to say is it's not the problem for us that people think it is. Our whole story is about the problem of evil. It starts in chapter 3 and it ends 66 books later. Now the difficulty is that we're in the middle of the story.
Right.
Okay, now you think of The Lord of the Rings. Anybody who's read that, it starts out great, really interesting, on this fabulous quest, and right in the middle, all of a sudden, you know, the orcs are everywhere, and the Uruk-hai are doing their thing, and the Big Eye is up there looking down on people, and the fellowship is broken up, and you could say, what a lousy story. Well, the story's not over yet. Keep reading. And in a sense, we're in the middle of the story, and people are looking at the chaos, and understandably so. But what are the options, actually? I know a lot of people become atheists because of the problem of evil. And I have a question for them. Tell me what you solve by doing that. Well, there's no God. Problem of evil. Okay, wait a minute. There is a problem of evil. I agree with that. Okay. But it's not a problem for Christians or theists only. It's a problem for everybody.
Yeah, as if atheists are immune to it.
Exactly.
Right.
They're the ones who are complaining loudest about it, right? So, okay, you don't believe in God anymore. I get it. I understand that. Okay, now tell me, problem of evil, it's still there. All these evil things are still happening. How do you make sense of the problem of evil given the resources that materialism allows for you? No God? How are you going to get traction against this notion? I don't think that atheists can even make sense of the problem itself, much less offer a solution. And so I know that Bertrand Russell, the great 20th century philosopher, atheist, British analytic philosopher, said, how can you talk about God when you're kneeling at the bed of a dying child? Wow, that's powerful. And when I first heard that, I thought, that has tremendous rhetorical force, and I don't know how I'd answer that. And then I heard Christian philosopher William Lane Craig offer a response. And he said, what is the atheist Bertrand Russell going to say when he's kneeling at the bed of a dying child? Tough luck? That's the way it goes? Too bad? You know, no silver lining? That's all that atheists have. They are forced into a suffocating silence in the presence of evil because their worldview cannot even make sense of it. But see, our worldview can make sense of it. We believe in the good that evil is a departure from. Okay, we're not relativists. And we believe that God understands the problem that we caused, and He is in the process of fixing it. You want to be on board? You got to climb on board with God. If you don't climb on board with God, you're not only going to be a victim of evil in the world, you're going to be a victim of your own evil when you stand before God and give an account for your life, because there's no one there to defend you. Okay? So, I mean, I think I'm in a pretty good place as a follower of Christ when it comes to the problem of evil. Now, that doesn't mean there's no outliers. There are no why did this person die in this circumstance at this time, and my little child at 4 years old died of leukemia? Man, I don't. We're on a battlefield, and there are going to be casualties until the battle's over. But we know why the battle started, and we know how the battle ends. And I can't tell you why people drop at certain spots at certain times in the battlefield. Only God knows that. I can't tell you that, and He's not talking about it. He's not giving us the insight. But we got the big picture. And the big picture that we have through Christianity makes sense. It fits together. Even if we don't have some of the why did God questions answered, we still got a comprehensive program, and much better than certainly any atheist accounting can make. So I think actually the problem of evil is one of the best arguments in favor of the existence of God, and consequently in favor of Christian theism, because of the kind of practical answer and existential satisfaction that is the personal solution to evil that Jesus and the Holy Spirit abiding with us provide for us in life.
And wouldn't you say, in part then, that from the psychological standpoint, this is useful to have conviction in these trying times.
Yeah.
That is something that becomes sort of the psychological support of saying that I have a conviction that even when things are seemingly horrific in a circumstance that I witness or that I'm involved in,
Right.
that somehow that becomes the psychological support that I need.
Yeah, it does, and on a couple different levels. I've never quite thought about it this way before, but you know, if you don't feel good, you feel sick.
Right.
That's scary. Go to a doctor and he identifies the disease. In a certain sense, you're feeling a little bit better, not physically better, but now you know what's wrong, and so then you can develop a plan to fix what's wrong. You're on a trajectory to improve this, correct it. And I think something similar is going on here. We have this angst, you know, this dread, this awareness that something's wrong, evil in the world, evil inside of me. Okay, now what? How do we fix it? And people, I think, are stabbing about trying to come to a conclusion about the way the world is that can help solve that problem. But I think some people just say, well, that's just the way it is, and too bad. Life is hard, and then you die, and that's all you can ever say about it. But I was lecturing at Berkeley once, which is a very interesting evening for me.
Right.
Sold out crowd, basically, overflow rooms. It was really a fabulous evening, and I was talking about relativism and the failure of relativism, and therefore some form of moral objectivism, real morality must be true, which I said then has explanatory power. And I said, for example, I know something that's true of everybody in this audience that you know about yourself, but you don't let on to other people, and that is that you have a bad self-image. Now, how do I know that? Because everybody does. It's the human condition. What happens is we look down inside of ourselves and we see something inside that's broken, right? And it's moral, something bad in there. We don't want to tell other people about it. We want to ignore it ourselves. We make excuses for ourselves or whatever. But we can't get away from the sense there's something wrong with us. Now, when we reflect on that, we have a feeling about that. And the feeling of our moral brokenness has a name in English. And so I asked the audience, what is the word we use to describe our own feeling of moral brokenness? And I waited for a few seconds, and then I started hearing it around the audience, guilt, 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 guilt. I said, yeah, why do we feel guilty? I asked them. Maybe it's culture, that's what does it. I mean, we talk about that. How about this? Maybe, I don't know, maybe we feel guilty because we are guilty. Is that in the running? Is that possible? And then I said this, and this gets right to your psychological thing, okay? Because remember, we were talking about knowing the problem. Okay, well, that's a step up psychologically. Now we got to find a solution. And I said to them, the answer to guilt is not denial. That's relativism.
Right.
The answer to guilt is forgiveness. Yeah. Now, I don't know about you, Patrick, but every time I say that line, something happens inside of me. When I say the answer to guilt is forgiveness, something happens inside. It's almost like something soothing is going on a wound in me. That's the existential issue, the psychological part. But it's tied to reality. It's not some mere psychological trick. If Jesus did die on the cross and he did rise from the dead, then there is forgiveness. And we want it. And I just can sense in the audience that this strikes a chord, that existential chord, the deep human need for forgiveness, which forgiveness then makes them acceptable. We want acceptance. We want to belong. All of these things are part of what God offers through Jesus. It fits.
תספרו לו איפה גדלתם.
אנחנו נולדנו בקיבוץ גנוסר, אבא שלנו דייג, ובעצם נולדנו לתוך הכנרת. אנחנו כל הזמן שיחקנו בכנרת, זה היה מגרש המשחקים שלנו. אבא היה דייג, ואנחנו 20 שנה הוא היה דייג, אנחנו בנים של דייגים.
מה חלמתם שהייתם ילדים?
חלמנו, באמת חלמנו, שיום אחד הכנרת תרד, ואנחנו נמצא את כל מה שנפל לדייגים במשך אלפי שנים ולסוחרים. הים ירד, המים זה, ואנחנו נמצא. ואני שואל את מוישלה, מה חלמת היום? הוא אומר, חלמתי בלילה שנמצא סירה, ובצד של סירה עתיקה, בצד יהיה כתוב למי היא שייכת, ישו או משהו כזה, סתם כזה.
כשאתם גדלתם, הפסדתם את החלום הזה? או עדיין...
מויש.
החלום שלנו תמיד היה בכנרת. צריכים להבין שחוץ מהכנרת לא היה לנו שום מקום משחקים אחר. כשהיינו נכנסים בבוקר לכנרת ויוצאים אחרי הצהריים כבר לא היינו רואים כלום, מרוב שעות שהיינו בתוך הים. עסקנו הרבה מאוד בנושא של דייג. ידענו בדיוק מתי הדגים באים להטלה, ואז יש לנו רשת קטנה בתור ילדים, והיינו מצליחים לתפוס ככה את הדגים. היינו יוצאים עם שרשרת גדולה עם דגים, וזה היה הגבריות שלנו, מי שתפס הכי הרבה.
כשים ירד, אתם ידעתם, אתם הלכתם בכוונה, נכון? למצוא את משהו?
הרבה שנים הכנרת לא ירדה, ובשנים האחרונות לצערנו הרב היא לא עולה, אבל כשהיא ירדה, אז בכל מיני מקומות בכנרת יש מעיינות. ובמעיין הזה, באחד המעיינות שהיו נוסעים עם המכוניות, אחת המכוניות שקעה, ויום אחד בגשם הראשון, כמו בסיפורים, בגלל הגשם החול קצת ירד, וגילינו כמה מטבעות, ואז ידענו שהשטח הזה במקום ששנים אנחנו הולכים עליו, ושהוא בכלל חוף רחצה, אבל בזכות זה שהמסעית שם שקעה כל כך עמוק, והעלתה מתוך האדמה משהו מאוד מאוד מיוחד. וכן, התחלנו לחפש משהו שכל השנים התפללנו אליו, מה שיורי סיפר.
אנחנו, ברגע שירדה הכנרת בפעם הראשונה, לא הפסקנו לחפש. זה החלום שלנו. גם בלילה שהיה ליל ירח הלכנו וחיפשנו, כי כל פעם היא יורדת כמה סנטימטר, ומתגלה דברים אי אפשר לתאר. ואחרי שמצאנו את המטבעות אמרנו, הנה המקום הזה, משהו קרה, כי יש מטבעות. ויום אחד, בחיפושים שלנו, אנחנו רואים מסמר רומי עתיק, ואחרי 20 סנטימטר עוד מסמר ועוד מסמר. קצת ניקינו, ראינו את העץ, אמרנו מצאנו סירה, קפצנו לשמיים, התחלנו לרקוד ולהשתגע מרוב שמחה. After 2 minutes, the rain coming, very strong rain, stopped quickly and rainbow go outside. Double rainbow, where we are standing with all the sea. And we are feeling she belongs from somebody. He give it to us chance to look at her, touch her, something like this.
מה המשמעות?
לנו זה לא, הרגשנו שכאילו זה סימן שהסירה הזאת היא של מישהו, והוא נתן לנו רשות להתחיל לראות אותה, לגעת בה, להביא אותה, לא יודע מה.
בתוך הכנרת, במים מתוקים, עץ לא נשאר יותר משנה, שנתיים. כשמצאנו את הסירה, מצאנו עץ ששמר על עצמו 2000 שנה. והבאנו את חוקר הכנרת, את מנדל נון, שהוא היה דייג יחד עם אבא שלנו, אבל הוא בעין גב, ואבא שלנו בגינוסר, וכל חיינו חלמנו על יום אחד שנמצא משהו, ומנדל נון יבוא לראות מה מצאנו. ומה שמיוחד בבן אדם הבוגר הזה, הוא עמד בסירה, ואמר לנו במפורש שהוא מעולם לא מצא עץ בכנרת, והוא לא יודע מה הוא רואה.
Before, I don't believe the God. After I find it, I believe the God, and because I believe it, day after day something good start, and all the time. כל הזמן קוראים לי דברים טובים, ברגע שפתחתי פתח קטן לאמונה הזאת.
איך זה שינה את החיים? האמא שלנו תמיד רצתה שיהיו המון סירות בכנרת. מהבית שלה, שהיום אני גר בו, והאבא שלנו היה דייג הרבה מאוד שנים, וכל החלומות שלהם אנחנו מצליחים להגשים אותם. יש המון סירות בכנרת, וממשיכים לתפוס פה דגים, והחלום של ההורים, אין ילד שלא רוצה להגשים את החלום של ההורים שלו.
יש משהו משמעותי שיש 12 סוגים של עץ בסירה? אתם חושבים?
כן.
כן, מה?
הסירה הייתה הרבה שנים על המים, כי היא הייתה סירה מאוד חשובה, היא הייתה גדולה, יכלה להעביר 20 אנשים כמו אוטובוס, ותפסה דגים. זאת אומרת, הייתה מאוד חשובה, וכל הזמן השתמשו בה. כל פעם שנרכב עץ, הוא נשבר מסערה. הם תיקנו אותו, הם לקחו עצים מהזה, בגלל זה 12 סוגי עצים.
העץ הוא כמו בן אדם. הוא נולד מגרעין קטן, גדל, נותן פירות ונעלם. ופה העץ הזה נשאר לנו 2000 שנה, שמר על עצמו. וזה מה שכל כך מיוחד, סירה שכנראה לא היה דייג שלא היה עליה. זו הייתה סירת עבודה שנתנה הרבה פרנסה, ואנשים שמרו עליה בגלל הפרנסה שהיא נתנה.
אנחנו קוראים לה סירת השלום, כי אנחנו מרגישים שיש בה, כן, סירת שלום, peace boat, we are calling, because she changed all the area from something good. אנחנו עושים פה סימפוזיונים ערבים ויהודים ביחד בגלל שהיא פה. המון אנשים מתפרנסים מהסירה הזאת. כל הסירות האלה זה חצי טבריה, יש לה עבודה. ויש כאן הרגשה מאוד טובה. אנשים כל הזמן מחויכים וטוב להם ונהדר להם בגללה. היא שינתה פה את הכל.
היא נמצאת בקיבוץ, היא לא שייכת לקיבוץ, היא שייכת לכל העולם.
אנחנו רוצים שכולם יבואו, ומי שיבוא הנה, הוא לא ימשיך לחיות עד...
I really enjoyed episode 5. And if you like that, you're going to love what's coming up tomorrow for episode 6. We have an interview with Dr. Randall Price, also Father Kelly. And remember, we're talking about more than one interview with Greg Koukl. So tell us all about that.
Well, you're in for a real treat with the next episode. We have Dr. Randall Price, and he's this bigger-than-life character that when I met him, he appeared to me kind of like an Indiana Jones. And amongst other things, he's known for being the lead archaeologist in Qumran, where they unearthed the Dead Sea Scrolls. So he's got a vast amount of experience and very compelling stories and a very enigmatic and charismatic figure. So you have that to look forward to. In addition, tomorrow we also have Father Kelly. Now you want to talk about a bundle of unbridled energy. That's Father Kelly. We are at a dig that's a first century synagogue that was unearthed right by the Sea of Galilee. And that is also where they found what's referred to as the Magdala stone, or out there they kind of pronounce it Magdala stone. And this they consider to be one of the most significant archaeological discoveries of the last century. You need to tune in and find out why. And one other thing I'll tell you is that in this synagogue that they unearthed, it is certain that Jesus had actually given sermons there, that he taught there. So it's a pretty exciting conversation that we have. And again, we get right down into the dig, and Father Kelly really does bring it to life. And then we also have part 2 of our interview with Greg Koukl. And you already saw part 1, and you could tell that part 2 is leading up to something that's really exciting, very important, and very stimulating as far as the things that he gets you to think about. So really excited to bring you that episode. Again, I just want to remind you, we created packages in Christ Revealed that anybody could align with. There's a range of things there. I'm sure one of them's right for you. And for those who supported us, I can't tell you how much gratitude we have. We worked hard to bring this into the world. We wanted to be able to bring it into the world for free. But we also know that by owning this, it's something that you can indulge in for years to come and something that you can share with people that you care about. So thank you so much for supporting Christ Revealed, and look forward to the next episode.